Yo, what's happening, guys? Listen, just before you listen or watch this podcast, we did have a slight technical problem. And when I say we, it was Ollie. All right. We had a problem. Ollie was with us. It was the full gang, and we're joined, as you'll see, by Dan Lawless from West Ham Fan TV. But there was a technical issue. We're being kind, but Ollie messed up, basically. All right. So bear with us. We hope it doesn't ruin your viewing or listening experience too much. Still a dope podcast. And we apologize for the technical issue. We will try our best to make sure Ollie doesn't mess up again, but it's Ollie, so no promises or guarantees. Anyway, if you haven't, don't forget, subscribe, share, comment. You know what to do. Enjoy the pod.
You got to get your business done early. We can't sit there, wait till the end of the season, then start interviewing managers.
I'm sure I remember G asking the question flat out saying that KDB was overrated.
You know what? This is dementia.
Predictions, guys, for the big game next week.
Oh, we're doing predictions now, are we? We haven't done predictions before.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to Not For Click Sports Podcast. I'm Jordan Jarrett Bryan. Ollie, Gabriel, and Marvin Full Gang is back. Everyone well?
Yes, George.
Good.
Yeah, Jordan, I was on the moon last week.
Well, I'm gonna get to you in a minute. Let's intro our guest first of all, but I've got something for you in a second. Let's intro our guest for this week. Dan Lawless from West Ham Fan TV. What are you saying, brother?
Yeah, man. Not bad. Errors.
What happened?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Your time.
I knew it.
Eager.
Punishing you for being ungrateful.
This is, you know what, and I'm glad because I haven't forgotten our conversations last time I was on this platform, right? I haven't forgotten, right?
Well, listen,
David.
Well, hang on. We're going to get to David Moyes West Ham, and G can have his fun in a minute as well. But we're going to scrap this quick hits this week because I thought it would be only right to give G a right of reply because he accused us in the WhatsApp group of slandering his name and making up lies about him last week. Yeah. They weren't lies, but I thought I'd just briefly give you a chance to respond to some of the things that you say were made up about you.
Yep. Thank you, George. And Dan, you can come in as the impartial.
G, don't be fooled, right? He's giving you this window so he can take you to the cleaners.
Here's what happened. De Bruyne got taken off by a Pep at the time. I can't remember who it was against Liverpool. And he sulked. I cheekily asked the question, does the sulking feed into the narrative what Jose Mourinho made about De Bruyne's having a bad attitude? Suddenly, it's come out that I've said De Bruyne's overrated. Thanks to our producer, who will make this.
Over to you, Ol.
I'm sure I remember G asking the question flat out saying that KDB was overrated. I'm sure I remember that.
Mark?
I don't remember that.
100%.
You know what? This is dementia. And Alex, I demand clip this and clip what I said. I'll play it together.
Like for me, what G just said, I just remember my discontent. I was like, what are we doing here? Listen to what he's talking about, KDB. I don't think what G just said would have garnered that reaction from me. So I'm not saying that G's 100% wrong. I'm saying he's softened the language because I wouldn't have challenged him so hard if it was verbatim what he just said.
I even said not about his ability. I clearly said that. Not his ability, his mentality.
I feel like it was something about big games or something like that.
Yeah.
And then someone asked you,
that was it.
What big game? And then you were like, he was nowhere in the final against you. And you were giving yourself the big one.
Yeah, and then I pulled it back and I said, but it's not even about...
You pulled it back from where, G? From what we've just discussed?
I pulled it back from the question that I was asked. Like, where is it?
Dad,
he has missed some big games.
Dad, you wasn't there, but who do you believe?
I don't know. Like Gabriel's, he's convincing.
I can't lie.
to one.
I'm going with Mob because of Chelsea 5-0. I'm going with Mob. That's how
I'm all right with that. Right, so guilty. Next one, G. What else did you hear last week you didn't like the sound of?
Yeah, I think Ollie accused that I said in the Coventry what I asked was
G, be careful here. G, be careful. I remember this one hard.
Yeah. So what happened is
I've got notes as well, G. So yeah, you need to.
As we know, Coventry were robbed of an injury time winner, which would have possibly have been the greatest FA Cup comeback in history, right? And the truth is, it was by a hair split. So I asked the question: would we not rather have that moment than it to be 100% accurate?
Dan.
Listen, I can't back you on anything. I'm just not backing it. Unless I see.
But on the premise that we should change the rules, Dan, for a great story, where do you stand?
Not change the rules for a great story. What I'm saying is VAR being that. I'm not even sure if it was accurate because there are various different angles which looks like it was onside. What I'm saying is, do we want the game to be that accurate or do we want the spectacle? That's my question.
Yeah.
It's getting worse.
You're right. Actually, I agree. Because I agree. I look at it, yeah. If we're looking at millimeters, right? Millimeters. That's not clear and obvious. It's not even, forget VAR. Offside should not be decided on millimeters. I've always said this. And they were supposed to change the rules and you were supposed to see daylight, all of that stuff. So yeah, I think that should have stood the goal. So I agree.
But then we agree that, do you think Wan-Bissaka's pen was a pen, which happened before we even got to extra time? Given the fact of what happened with the handball in the Chelsea game that wasn't given, do we think that was a pen?
Are we doing tit for tat here? Are we doing like...
No, listen, I'm all about time and sequencing, so I'm just doing tit. If they were just tit, there is no tat. Simple. So I'm all about just tit. And there's
we know Marv likes a little bit of tit, don't we?
I was gonna say G.
No, did he?
G.
God.
No, it shouldn't affect did he?
Yeah. What are you doing, man?
G's just basically saying he likes chubby guys, but we'll move on. But yeah, I'm like, for me, G, that one's arguably worse because there's no grey area, and you've kind of supported it by saying, why let accuracy get in the way of a good story? That's what you're saying. And let me be clear, boot on the other foot. If it was Man United and they were offside by a hair's breadth, you'd be like, offside. It's a stinky narrative, G. And I'm willing to move on, but I want you to know it's stinky. It is.
Yeah, so I gave it a chance, G. It's guilty as well. Right, then let's now move on with the pod, guys. And we got Dan with us now, and I thought it was only fair to get Dan back on after we some in the comments we were quite harsh on you last time, Dan. I disagree, but the comments, to be fair to them, said you guys were a bit you were on him a bit too much. So there's been movement at your club. It's been announced that David Moyes will not be there next season. It's been pretty much confirmed. Lopetegui will be, last I heard, Dan, keep me honest here, a deal has been agreed between Lopetegui and West Ham United. So, let's start with David Moyes first of all. Last we spoke, you were leaning towards it's time to move on. You go your way, we go our way. Are you still happy with that he is moving on? And secondly, are you happy with how it's ending and how it's been handled?
Yeah, of course I'm happy. I haven't changed since last time. In fact, I feel vindicated from the last conversation we had because all of this, what more do you want? What more do you want? We're getting losing 5-2 to Palace, 5-0 to Chelsea, 5-0 to Fulham. What manager should be able to be allowed to keep their job with such results? You know what I mean?
Ten Hag.
Well, yeah, apart from Ten Hag, of course, he's lifetime contract.
Even
But
Ten
Eric
Hag,
Southgate is lined up, so you know you.
even Ten Hag hasn't been beaten by
When
force
someone
and
like
fine.
Southgate is available, you can't keep a Ten Hag. But yeah, so yeah, like you said, you guys were putting it on me, and he won you a trophy. He did this, he did that. But look, he's a defensive manager that, you know, we've conceded 70 goals. We've equaled Avram Grant's season, which we got relegated in defensively. And we've got 2 games left. So best believe that Man City are going to put maybe like 10 past us. So we could concede over 80 goals, right? This season, it's time to go. And the way we've handled it, a lot of the media are sitting there going like, "Oh, poor Moyes, and it's disgrace." We've respected his contracts. We're just parting ways at the end of the season. Not been sacked. His contract's up. Thank you for your time. We're going in a different direction. Yeah. Of course, yeah, we've courted other managers, and there's all that talk about why he's still a contract. You got to get your business done early. We can't sit there, wait till the end of the season, then start interviewing managers. He, according to his own words, he said this. I don't know if I believe it, but he said he had a contract on the table after we'd lost 8 games in a row. This was earlier on, like January, February time. He said he has a contract, and I'm not signing it to the end of the season. So if he ain't signed it, that's on him. If we sit there and go, "Cool, you don't want to sign it," we look elsewhere. It's all on Moyes.
So I didn't know that. So he was offered a contract, but he declined it.
According to him, what he said, I think it was January, February time, he came out when he was asked, he said, "Yes, there is a contract on the table, but I don't want to do anything about it until the end of the season. I want to get through the season, so I'm not signing it yet." But he said, "I want to make sure it's the right move for my family, it's the right move for me, it's the right move for the club." So he, according to his own words, didn't sign a contract that was offered to him.
Okay.
If we've gone in another direction now, that's on him.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting. All right, and moving forward now to, we're expecting, right, confirmation the next between now and end of the season, Lopetegui to be announced as your new manager. I'll just give my view, and then I'm going to hear yours, and then I'll get Marvin's and G's as well. It feels to me like a bit of a, G said before we started recording, a sideways move. If you're going to move on David Moyes, fine, cool. Maybe it's run its course. Maybe it's time to go in a new direction. I just don't know if Lopetegui, and look, he's managed Real Madrid and did do great there, but he's not a chump. But it feels a little bit to me like a manager that is a foreign version of David Moyes. Is that unfair?
I think it's slightly unfair. I don't think it's the departure that we wanted, from Moyes. I don't think the difference or the upgrade in terms of style of play is massive, but I think there is an upgrade. I think, he does play possession football, which is obviously different to Moyes' counter-attacking football. But his possession seems to be a bit more slow, a little bit more defensive-minded possession, passing around to the back. All of that's waiting for openings, which isn't very entertaining, although his teams do seem to like to press, which is good, which we could have really done with against Chelsea. Everyone was just standing still. There was pressing, it was the opposite of pressing. So that's a positive. And, so his teams do like to pass. There's a bit more of a technical angle to his game, so there is that, but it's not the exciting football that we really wanted, to get rid of Moyes. So it's an improvement, but not enough for me to really, be excited for the new manager. So it's obviously not confirmed yet. I wanted someone like Fonseca or someone like that. There was lots of links with like the likes of Gary O'Neill or Graham Potters, Amorim, obviously. But Sullivan didn't want to pay the contract out. He didn't want to buy people out their contracts. It's an easy, cheap option. Lopetegui's free. He's not in the job, and he's managed in the Premier League. So Sullivan, easy signing. So, but yeah, we'll have to see. Have to give him a chance. And he's going to be a head coach, not a manager. That's another thing. So he's not involved in the transfers. So Steidten is going to be signing the players, and he just coaches them. So I'm happy with that direction. Because Moyes, he's spent a lot of money, a hell of a lot of money, and our squad is in shambles and needs a rebuild. Spent nearly £500 million, and here we are in the season. Loads of players coming up for their contract. poor Zuma's got one leg. Bonner's 36 years old. It's a mess. So you spend all that money we need, and he signed Calvin Phillips as well.
Dan, did Stuyton get Moyes sacked? I've been watching that story a little bit closely. I heard he's not even allowed in the dressing room, which for a director of football is always going to be a little bit difficult. Has that relationship ended, Moyes' career at West Ham, do you think?
I think Stuyton probably had a say in it. From what I understood, that Stuyton removed himself from the dressing room because of conflict of interest. He didn't think it would be right for him to be in the dressing room if he's looking for the manager's replacement and he's coming in there interacting with the players. So he removed himself in that situation. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, because Moyes was the manager, there was that clash of Moyes has always wanted to, he's one of them sort of people like, almost like Wenger. I'm not comparing him to Wenger as a manager, but Jordan, if you remember, Wenger didn't want directors of football. He wanted a say on the transfers and the way the direction of the club. Same with Moyes. He didn't want that, but we pushed that in. So that was a conflict there. And I think Stuyton was like, when Sullivan gave him the go, he was like, yes, this is the direction. So I think that played a part.
Marvin, do you think Lopetegui is probably the top end of the sort of manager that they could have got, or do you think they could have? Is it a sensible appointment, or do you think they could have made a bit higher?
It's funny because Dad said that it's a different direction, and I think to your point, Jordan, I'm just not sure how different it is, right? And I think personally, it seemed easy, and actually Dan just put it into perspective for me because I couldn't really get my head around it. Like, why him? Right? Amorim was like, I heard they sent him a private jet and all this sort of things. It's probably all nonsense. But for me, it was like, it just didn't seem dynamic. It didn't seem like there's a manager there that's going to grow with the team and really put his footprint on it. It's somebody that can do the business in the short term, but nothing long term. But it all makes sense. I mean, Sullivan's never been one to squander cash, right? So to pay a manager out, it just doesn't seem like him when something's there. I just want to be clear though. I still think it was harsh on Moyes, right? He won him a cup, George. I can't remember one cup that they won, right? Before that. And I think ultimately Dan's right. Like, some of the results have been terrible, but I feel like there was the element of dead man walking syndrome there, right? Like, the players knew he was gone. They're like, I'm still going to be here next year, so I'm going to go out and give it a 90. And the bit that really finished it for Moisey was when they were like, you did so well last season. What happened? He's like, Declan Rice. I miss Declan. Like, I was like...
That was bad.
We finished 14th with Rice. We finished 14th with Declan Rice.
I was just like, my goodness, have some scruples. Do you know what I mean? You might send them a love letter behind closed doors. It was just like, this is nothing to do with me. This is nothing to do with the players. I mean, I would have respected injuries because Paqueta was out for a while. Like, if he said something like that, but I miss Declan Rice. You got 100+ mil for Declan Rice. So what did you do?
It well.
Yeah, and it's just like, Carl, come on, Moisey. So you know what? It's one of those things, and it's funny because Dan was saying the contract was on the table, but he was saying he needs to see what's going to go on with his family, and I think part of that is I hear Zaha might come back from the Prem, so he doesn't want his daughter being in the wrong city when he returns.
All right, anyway.
Can I ask, beginning of the season, because I agree, I agree with Mo. I think Moyes has been treated a little bit harsh here. But beginning of the season, what league position would West Ham expected to be in?
Beginning of the season, we was aiming. I mean, I predicted 7th, so that was the aim. Is 7th. We get back into Europe.
And you're 8th now, right?
We're 8th now. Are we going to finish 8th? No, because you've got 20 games in hand. Brighton's got games in hand. Newcastle's got games in hand. Wolves are below Brighton.
But G, to be fair to Dan, I mean, I'm with you, G, but I don't think the position is really the discussion. I think the problem that West Ham fans, and again, Dan interject here, they're 7th, but they're not watching the football that they think they should be watching. And it's not really for... Go on.
As Sam Allardyce said, I don't know what football West Ham think they should... I don't know what this West Ham way is, to be honest with you. But What I would say is, if someone wins, as I think Marvin said last time, right, I don't want to rehash it. If someone wins you your biggest achievement for 50 years, surely you could just tolerate 1 year of bad football after.
But the football's been bad all the time. Like, it's never been.
Oh, Dad.
It was bad, but effective. It was bad, but it worked.
Dad, let me tell you, yeah. We've done pod conversations way before we rebranded this one, right? And when you talked about winning, and you talked about that was like one of the best nights of your life, there was a twinkle in your eye that cannot be replaced.
There was.
You were ecstatic. I reckon that's up there with some of the most fun things with your loved ones. Like, that was your West Ham pinnacle, and that man helped deliver it, right? And I just can't believe you're not saying it. You were playing good football last season. It was enough to get you a cup. It was enough to make your season, Dad. So give him a little bit of credit. Come on, man.
Well, where was all this love for Jose Mourinho when he won you the Europa League? Where was this energy?
Dad, this what about isn't it? You're better than this.
Touche.
No, there's no shade to that too. And I'll tell you why. Because Jose didn't give me a pinnacle. He gave me a Europa. I'm used to better than that. My levels are different. Now, Dan, I know you're... Dan,
I don't know. The way Jose rolled around, it's like a pinnacle.
I've been a United fan for over 20 years. I'm used to better than the Europa League. Give me a bit of credit. Now, I'm saying we're dog crap now. But what I'm saying is, the love wasn't there for Jose because Jose gave me, in my opinion, a consolation prize where Moyes gave you the pinnacle. Now, Dad, I'm okay with what you're saying. Like, I get it. You want to be entertained. You're paying for your season ticket and stuff. And G's kind of on the bandwagon, which is a rarity. But I'm just saying, it's a bit dirty. He was dancing and having a good time in the dressing room this time last season when you won a trophy. And now it's almost like he needs to go. He's always been rubbish. You've never been playing good football. It gives me that vibe of when your girlfriend dumps you and goes, she was never a fit one. Do you know what I mean? But when you were holding her hand going to the cinema, it was different. And I just feel like...
record. Last season, I was on his neck because don't forget, we was in a relegation.
You was. To be fair, you was.
Yeah. And this year, they've improved.
Do you know what the funny thing is? I see a clip, and it was an interview he did like when we got him back, and he's like, first I want to focus on keeping us up, but I want to play attacking football, good football we can be proud of. That's what I want to do. And he didn't deliver on what he said. He also said that he wanted to do the Red Bull model and bring youngsters through. He didn't do that. He didn't deliver on the things that he said he was going to do. Now, he overly delivered a trophy. Great. But he was paid a lot of money to do a job. We've said, you know what? That job you've done a decent job. We're going to go in a different direction. You don't make decisions on managers based on what they've done, but what they're going to do. Where are you going, right? And where we're going with David Moyes, I don't think is a progressive future under David Moyes. We can't just say we'll keep him because he won a trophy and, we'll wait until it looks like he's going to get us relegated, then we sack him. No. I said this last time I was on the show.
I hear you. So
you've got to have stability when you
have the final word. Have the final word, Dan. So going forward, what's the remit for you as a West Ham fan for Lopetegui? What is it? Start of the season. What is it over? Let's say 2 years. Over 2 years, what is it that you would feel like has been a good 2 years, an acceptable 2 years, an enjoyable 2 years? Give me 3 things, 3 bullet points that he must do.
So I'm a believer, and this is why I've advocated for Poch and had to sort of talk down onto a lot of Chelsea fans. But I'm a believer that every manager should get 1 season at least. Get that season to iron out the kinks, work things out right. But with Lopetegui, first season, I'm not sitting there saying, you've got to finish in Europe or whatever, right? As long as we're not involved in a relegation battle, my light's gone. We're not in a relegation battle, and I'm seeing progress in how we play, style of football. You get a lot more patience with fans when you're playing decent football. So that for me is key, and bringing youngsters in. So bring youth in, first season, bring youth in, progressing the style of football, and don't have us in a sort of stable first season to build off.
So if you finish 11th next season, there's 3 or 4 youngsters in the squad. And what was the third one? Sorry, good football,
playing better football. Yeah,
but
then I'm happy with that as a first season to build off of. Like I said, first season, table wise, like I said, as long as we're not in danger of going down, I'm happy as long as we consolidate. But I'm fairly entertained by what I'm seeing, and because we've got some good youngsters, we've got some really good youngsters. Let's start seeing those coming through. I want to see progress. I want to see some sort of progress, even if it's not league finishes. We're not getting battered 5-0 each week, those sorts of things, and it's going to be interesting.
Let's see how it works out. Let's move on.
Would you think that's unreasonable? Do you think that's an unreasonable one?
No. I don't.
I think Moyes could have done it, but
all right. Have a day off. All right. Let's move on to another subject that actually Dan Moyes or Lopetegui might come up in this one as well. Let's have a chat now about managers, and this could be Premier League, it could be across Europe, but narratives and biases, right? So we'll have a chat about the managers who we think have particular narratives around them, and whether we think that they are correct, incorrect, fair, unfair, and why we think those narratives are built up around certain people. And it was kind of triggered for me by Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou, right? Who I know we want to hear you guys' thoughts. I think he's getting a bit of a rough deal, a raw deal, right? I mean, there's a lot of people piling in on Postecoglou. The results have been awful, right? They've been really, really poor for the past month.
The media have absolutely cuddled him, clipped him, loved him, applauded his honesty. They've loved him. The media have loved him. And they've applauded the big Ange, love it, Ange ball. Since when did you get balls after like one season? Usually people got even a season to get your name in front of a ball. It's been ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? So I just want to be very clear. I don't want to leave Ange going on like man's had it hard this year. It's catching up with him now, but he's been living lavish this season as far as I'm concerned. You know what I mean?
Let's go on to Poch, guys. Come to you, G, because he's another manager that some people say, the media's quite soft on Poch.
He's not an elite manager. Poch is not an elite manager. Let's be clear on that. But I think generally the perception of him is the right one. He's a nearly man. He'll take you to a certain place, but he probably won't get you over the line. And I think that's okay. People, you asked me before we came on, like whether I changed my tune about him. And Ollie asked me, and and it's funny because Dan was on the conversation last time we were talking about this as well. But I don't eat humble pie very often.
You should. That's the worst thing.
Poch hasn't done enough to make me eat humble pie in this situation, but he's done enough to shut me up. He won't hear any more criticism from me this year. And if he gets...
he won't hear anything more from me for the next 3 weeks. But this is what
exactly. And if he does get us into the Europa League, I said this before, he could actually maybe see it as, in the context of the season, not for normal Chelsea, but for this iteration of Chelsea, I think he can see that as meeting a minimum objective.
Does everyone agree? I know Ollie doesn't overly rate Poch. Does everyone think that Poch is perceived or spoken about accurately? Or does Dan come to you? Do you think that Poch is talked up more than... Should he be at a club like Chelsea? Or is he punching?
No, I think he should. For what Chelsea wanted to do, they wanted this project. And, he had a project that didn't ultimately succeed at Spurs because he didn't win anything, but played some great football, Champions League final. I know Marv said we don't remember finals, but, Spurs fans remember it, and brought through some good players.
I wonder why.
That's what they develop young players. And where I look at it, Poch, it goes back first season. If he gets Chelsea, this Chelsea team into Europa League, They need to give him a new contract. He's on a 2-year deal. He needs a 4-year deal. If he gets this Chelsea team into Europa League, people have not spoken about that enough. This team is a shambles. It's an absolute mess. £1 billion spent. Any manager that inherits this has a lot of work on their hands. So you got to give him some credit. For him to even be in this race at this stage for Europe right now with this team in his first season, you got to give him his flowers. And next season, they're going to need to try and sell some players and back this man and give him some players and then judge him. Because, like I said, I just look at it, and the way they've gone about their business, I don't respect it. And they're selling hotels now to try and avoid profit sustainability. He's got to deal with all of this while he's trying to manage it. Not knowing if they're going to get points deductions next season, if they're going to get put down into relegated. It's just a lot. So you've got to give him credit, man.
Let's move on to Unai Emery. I mean, I think if Arsenal don't win the league, I would argue that he should be manager of the year.
I go one step further, Jordan. I think even if Arsenal win it, I would still give him manager of the year. Right, let's not forget Arteta just bought Declan Rice for 100+ million. Like, he's had money, he's had backing. I would still give it to Emery, because if you ask me to do my top 4, 10 times Villa ain't getting in it. Right? Like, for me, manager of the year is people that overachieve. So I'm looking at people like, based on their squad, I'm looking at him, I'm looking at Gary O'Neill. These people have no right to either not be beating relegation or to get into the Champions League. So I think he's done a good job. And I hear what I was saying, because they did get packing out, but the packing out's what we expect, though. I'm expecting them to get packed out. It's going to the Emirates and packing them out on their own turf. That's a surprise to me. So, I'm giving it to him. And I think, actually, as bad as they've been in some games, I think a lot of times, more often than not, he's got the tactics right. He's done what Hart couldn't do and just played to his team's strengths while trying to counter what the other team's got on the other side. So he's turned Ollie Watkins into a player, George. I'm looking at this guy thinking he's doing stuff, and they've talked about the way he's managed Watkins and stuff. I think of everyone we've spoken about so far, I would give him even more flowers. I think he's been good. Villa should be... I hear what O's saying. United are terrible, Chelsea terrible, Spurs are leaking goals, but Villa have overperformed, in my opinion. And there's lots of other teams like Brighton who have done well in the seasons before, who haven't capitalised on the disarray that some of the bigger clubs are in. So I think he's done an exceptional job, personally.
And the football's good too. Let's move on to Mikel Arteta. I know all of you not hate Arteta. Yeah, I know everybody hates Mikel Arteta. Who can I get the most balance from on here? I can speak to. Let's go to G. I think G probably hates him the least of the four of you. Why, G? Why do you think everybody hates Mikel Arteta? And again, is it a fair perception about him?
I think it's almost that other way around, where the perception of him has been so good or so imbalanced. Like, he's done this great things about Arsenal. He's brought, he's revolutionized the club. He's done this, he's done that, and now people start to look at a few of his flaws. So now people start to say, okay, he can be a little bit of a prick on the touchline every now and again, and people highlight it. People might say, okay, he doesn't use young players, which Arsenal are famed for, but he's barely used any young players this year, and now people will highlight it.
We've got the second youngest team in the squad in the league.
Academy players, yeah. And he hasn't promoted much. I think there was a stat to say, out of all of the top 6 sides, Arsenal would pay the least under 21 players. I haven't got the stats with me, but you can check it. What academy player has come through under Arteta and has established himself in the team?
No, that's a fair question. I mean, Saka, Nelson, Smith Rowe are in the squad, but yeah, they came in the year before him.
They were Emery, weren't they? And none of them have, and Saka was always going to be Saka. Smith Rowe barely gets a kick nowadays. I mean, so I think it was more like people had this perfection perception of Arteta, and now it's getting to crunch time. like the coke is starting to come down a little bit, and people are seeing some of the things where he's just like any other manager, and he should be treated that. And also as well, like he gets a lot of credit for where he's taken Arsenal to, which I think is great. But it's kind of like Poch, right? You have to go and win it now. Like I think these 2 years that have gone past, as much as people were saying, well, it's little old Arsenal, you know, they're just happy to be second. You don't get many better chances to win the league than what he's been faced with. And okay, you can say, well, it's not a failure or a bottle if he doesn't win it, but actually, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier with, like, you know, dreaming and managers take you to the next level and overachieving. I think he kind of has to. I think he has to win a league in this period. He has to take advantage of the position that he's in, and if he doesn't win it this year, maybe he might not get another chance too.
Just very briefly, Ten Hag's another one as well. Let's finish with you, Dan, on Ten Hag, because you're our guest. I mean, he's thinking the place out, right? But I can't work out what the narrative around him is. So help me out, guys. What do we think the narrative and perception around Ten Hag is? I think he's a good manager. I do. He's bombing at United, but I don't think he's a bad manager. Am I mad?
Do you know what? I was quite neutral on Ten Hag. I thought the Man United fans were doing too much in terms of how they reacted to him. But for me, that Palace game, that was like the final nail in the coffin for Ten Hag. Like, and I don't think he's working with a particularly great squad. I talked about the mess that Chelsea's team is, but I look at that Man United team that's been built over the years by several different managers. I know obviously Ten Hag has brought in quite a few players he was given, but he's had injuries to deal with this season. You know, everyone talks about injuries and this team's had injuries. He's had quite a few injuries. You know, he lost Bruno for that game. Shouldn't be losing 4-0. But sometimes it's just time to move on. Fresh start. Ineos is coming. You know what I mean? So new era, new manager, and he can go off and, you know, hopefully, I think he's linked with the Bayern Munich job. I think he might go to Bayern Munich. So I think it's best for both parties if he leaves. I just think that's where it is. But I don't think it's as bad as Man United fans make out to. I think there's a few things they're not mentioning, like I said, the injuries and such.
All right. Just before we wrap up with our Willis of the week, Marv. You won't be here next week. You're going to be away, and next week's obviously the big one that everyone's been waiting for. Arsenal going to Old Toilet to handle business. Can I just get on record what you think? Have you dialed down your confidence on a United win?
Can I ask you how high you thought my confidence was before?
Quite high, actually.
Because no, I don't think so. I think your confidence was high and I was trying to dial it down. And this is the problem that G had and that you let him clear out at the beginning. Our memories get wishy-washy. The whole plan was you thought you were going to have to win all the games. And I was just like, let's not forget, you've got to come to Old Trafford. You said easy peasy lemon squeezy. You might still think it's easy peasy lemon squeezy. And I'm just telling you, like, as crap as we've been, every now and again we put a performance in and I'm not ruling it out.
I will say, Marv, injuries aren't completely down to bad luck as well. So I partially blame him.
There's been complaints about his training regimes and the fitness of the players, so I get that. But it doesn't negate the fact that this has been a really, really challenging time from an injury perspective. I would go on record right now and say Luke Shaw's injuries probably cost us 9 points this season, because I can point to many instances where we've had a right back at left back that's just done stupid stuff in the box, right? Like, I'm not making excuses. I want Hag out. I'm very clear. I want Hag out, right? Because I think whether he's a good coach or not, the die is cast now. I don't think you turn that ship around. You need freshness in there now. But he's had a tough gig with the injury record we've had to see.
All right, it's time for this.
What you talking about, Willis?
George, this one's kind of easy this year, this week. It's kind of easy. There hasn't been as much nonsense. And to be honest with you, I was very, very close to naming the Man United starting 11 and just giving them all of the Willis in terms of how embarrassing they were yesterday. It was, as Dan said, for me, it was the final nail in the coffin. And what's hilarious about it, Jordan, I put 100 quid on Palace to win and Arteta to score. I was that confident that we were going to get packed out as soon as I, believe it or not, as soon as I heard that Maguire was injured, because I actually didn't even think Evans would be fit, and I heard it was going to be McTominay and Casemiro. And Palace were the favourites, easy. United were like 3-1. Palace were like 2-1, right? So I was going to give it to them, but George, I have to go with Nottingham Forest and them trying to pursue Sky for legal action on Gary Neville here, right? This to me is like crybaby syndrome to the element. Like, basically, Gary Neville is a pundit version of a troll. For them to, like, think about it, George, for them to call up the lawyers and go, watch this and see if I've got a case of a man speaking his opinion on something that was stupid in the first place, from considering options based on bad referee. Can you imagine the world we would live in if everyone rang up the lawyers? I mean, lawyers would be making money hand over fist, right? But for them to go on record and suggest that they're considering legal action against Sky and Gary Neville, I get the fact he called them mafia, but have you seen the Forest owner, George? There's no way his money's clean, right? Like, that guy is a Narcos extra if ever I've seen one, right? Like, that for me is the pinnacle. And the thing is, I actually think Forest might stay up. But if they're going to stay up, all I needed to do is shut up, right? Like, it's very simple. We get it. You've been screwed. We talked about Ashley Young. It was a travesty. But I think every fan and every club could point to travesties through the years. This is the first time I've heard people pursuing legal action into Cardiff aside for playing incidents, but this is a problem, and I'm going to give it to Forest, and an honourable mention to Patrick Beverley in the NBA, who banned a lady from asking questions to him because she doesn't subscribe to his pod. It's a really, really bad decision. Man United escaped for another week. It's got to be Nottingham Forest.
Nottingham Forest got the Willis of the week.
We've got to get someone else on the Willis, because Man United keep on escaping it.
Well, what? Gee, I mean,
to be fair, if they don't get it, G, they're in the honourable mention section. So somewhere along the line, they get it.
You know what? George, can I just say a big thank you, because the whole reason why G's bringing this up is because I'm not giving them the full-blown Willis, but I'm not letting them off the hook, G. I'm mentioning them every week, G. Like, yeah, get someone else on the Willis if you want the same thing every week. I'm going to give you variety. I apologise for that. You know what I mean?
Hawk should have had at least 3 Willises this year.
Hawks had 2. Hawks had 2. Do you know what I mean? And let's be clear, G, right? Chelsea's had a few blights as well. You know what I mean?
You have.
Jackson just tussling and stuff. Ain't Willis worthy behaviour. You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
I'm giving everyone an equal shake here. I'm not happy with the attack on my integrity. I'm giving dues where it's dues. You know what I mean?
Before we go predictions, guys, for the big game next week.
Oh, we're doing predictions now, are we? We haven't done predictions before.
Go on, G. Where you got no pot? Go on, G.
Away win.
Give me a score. Come on.
Oh, score 3-1.
This has 1-1 written all over it. This is going to be the Man United scumbag knicker result. It has it all over it. I'm sorry, Jordan, but you've got to see it coming. Look at the Liverpool game.
God, Dad, do you hate us more than you hate Arsenal?
No, I don't.
Why are we the scumbags here?
No,
Why are
you
we the scumbags?
Because you get battered and you somehow nick a result, whether it's a win against Coventry or, you know.
That's what a prediction, man.
You know what? The funny thing is, right? You not make me sound out to be the crazy one, but I tell you, I'm the most sane. Like, let me tell you, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing scumbaggy about United getting points at Arsenal only based on our form. Like, Arsenal don't come to OT and pack us out ever. Under any manager. They don't come and pack us out. This is their best chance of packing us out because of where we currently are. But let's see. It's not lost on me that the host is asking for predictions. We've done this. I don't know how many we've done, but 15, 16 pods. Never had a request for a prediction.
Yeah, subscribe to the podcast. We're on Instagram, mate. See you next week. Peace. Jordan, where's yours? Wait a minute. Don't think you can sneak out and ask a prediction. Like, you ain't going to be on the spotlight here. Come, what's your prediction?
5-1.
Let's wrap this up. Let's wrap it up.
Yes, thank you very much, guys. Let's wrap it up there. Great pod as per usual. Don't forget, if you're listening or watching, subscribe, comment, share. You know what to do by now, guys. We're getting some nice momentum with the pod. We're growing. It's growing. We can see you're listening and watching the podcast. So please just help us out a little bit more by sharing it with your WhatsApp groups and giving us a like or a comment. Let's get a convo going on Instagram or on TikTok as well. Hit us up on the socials. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Peace.